This is Dr. Garver, Dr. Carolyn Garver with the Autism Treatment Center here in Dallas. And thank you for your time. Let's go back to the beginning. When did you get your first degree?
My first degree? I got it in 1972.
1972. So what was that degree in?
It was a degree in education and a minor in psychology.
Okay.
And then in 73, I got a master's in special education from North Texas State University, which is now UNT.
Okay.
And then I worked for a while, and then I thought, well, I need some more stimulation. So I actually went back to school in health sciences at TWU, and I got my PhD in 1998 in health sciences with actually more of I was looking at epidemiology, and I actually got to teach at TWU epidemiology one semester.
Wow.
So, and there's a lot now, if we look at it, the epidemiology of autism is just astounding. And
Yeah.
so it really sort of was very relevant and fit in.
So back then, I mean, was autism a thing? Was autism something that you heard about?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when I first started in this field, I was working on my master's. I did not hear about it much when I was working my undergraduate degree. And I was student teaching with a number of emotionally disturbed kids.
Okay.
And that was very interesting because they're really different. But I got it when I went to North Texas State University. They had a program called the Center for Behavioral Studies. And so I got really interested in it, and I got to work over there for a while and did some work over there. And I actually have individuals that I met when they were 12 and 13 that now are in their 50s and 60s, and I still have them today.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm still friendly with their families and the ones that are still living.
So it's 1972, and you're thinking about your future career. Why? Why education? I mean, was it autism in your mind at the time?
No, I
was it
liked
just
people that were different. And so
Yeah.
when I worked with the kids with emotional disturbance, it was fascinating to me, and just studying them and I actually did some photo essays with them, and I was at the University of Miami at the time, so Miami has a lot of different places, like the parrot jungle, they've got, zoos, they've got Viscaya, they've got all these different places you can go.
Yeah.
And so I learned an interesting, this was sort of a different, they were coded with emotional disturbance. But what I learned was, and there was the hippie days,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, and my teacher that I was a student teacher for was a hippie. And she wasn't there a lot. So, but I got really concerned because my kids wanted to play all the time. I knew nothing about behavior modification,
Right.
which is now ABA. I knew nothing.
Yeah.
It was just all kind of instinctual, what do I do? So I said to her one time, I said, these kids want to play all the time, and I need to know why. What is the deal? Well, she said, here's what the deal is. They're latchkey kids. I've never heard of that term before. So when they were at home, when they got home after school, their parents were gone, usually a lot of them were working, they assumed adult responsibility. Sometimes they had to take care of their brothers or sisters, they had to clean the house. I mean, these were 12, 13, 14-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And I thought, really? So I went home with them one day. I got permission, went home with them, and that's what they were doing. So that's when they had the chance to play, was at school.
Yeah.
So I completely had these different thought revert. I think out of the box a lot. I know that's very cliche-ish, but I have to do that. Because these individuals have such different ways of thinking, you got to think like them. So I went and started taking them to all these places, and we took all these pictures, and then we went back and put them all together and made, like picture books and we had photo albums back then of our experiences, and they wrote stories, and it was a great semester.
Right.
I graduated with a 4.0.
Nice.
I passed student teaching. I didn't think I saw the teacher very often. She was in a fog most of the time.
Yeah.
But she gave me the opportunity to really, express myself, which was good.
Yeah.
So when I got to North Texas State University, NTSU, my degree's from NTSU.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I got to North Texas, I actually was living in Boston. I just graduated from the University of Miami, and I was living in Boston. My parents were living in Dallas, and they said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." So there was a new program starting at North Texas State. It was a special ed program, and they had 13 slots, and they had one slot left. So my father said, "Get down here." So I had a little Austin, America. I drove down here from Boston, and I got accepted to the program, and I went through it in about a year and a summer, because I started in 72 and finished in 73. Had a degree, a master's degree, and I went to work for Dallas County at the time, MHMR. We don't call it that anymore. And I was I worked there for 5 years, and I was in the behavior unit there.
Right, okay.
Because when I was at North Texas, I learned behavior modification. I had, a lot of people that are really big in the field now in ABA were people that mentored me, and that I could, and I learned about behavior modification.
Okay.
And so it was very interesting because it worked. I mean, we didn't have a lot of research and a lot of evidence based back then, but now, of course, there's volumes and volumes of evidence based, activity going on, and we know that it's a viable, intervention.
Yeah.
So it's practically the only one that insurance will pay for, other than OTPT and speech.
Okay.
So
OTPT, what's that?
I'm sorry, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and they call usual therapy is occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
ABA is, and that's considered under acute care, so you get that through health care.
Okay.
ABA, applied behavior analysis, is considered a behavioral health function. So it's paid for by behavioral health. Insurance pays for it under the behavioral health piece, not under the acute care.
Okay.
Now you still have to have a doctor's order and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but it's evolved. I mean, when I started, it was probably 2 in 10,000, and that was 1972, and now it's 1 in 59.
Wow. Yeah.
And it went incrementally down, like it was 2 in 10,000 or 1 in 10,000, then it was like what, 1 in 500, 1 in 250, 1 in 150, 1 in 88, 1 in 68, 1 in 59 in 2018.
Wow. So, all of this time, so you've seen the evolution, the history, the changes around autism, disability in general throughout all of these years. How many years have you been working in this industry now?
About 45.
So 45 years of change have led you here to ATC, and the tour, you cannot walk through this building and not be moved. I mean, it's just,
You're gonna make me cry.
it's just incredible to see these adults and these individuals, and so for all of those in the world that don't have an opportunity to thank you, let me thank you for them. It's just unbelievable what happens here. To see your passion, Anna, everybody, the staff, it's just it's so moving, and I'm very moved by it. But so.
Well, I thank you for bringing attention to it.
Oh well, it's
and
our
for what
it's
you
our
do.
pleasure,
I mean, you are involved in it pretty highly as well.
Well, I have skin in the game,
Yes, you do.
and that's my motivation. And but people like you that have been so dedicated your long career to trying to help these guys, this is not an easy task.
But it's really worthwhile. It's very rewarding if you do it the right way, if you look at it the right way. And I do. And like I said, I'm always hopeful. I never put limits on anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that someone wants to be a pilot. They may not be able to be a pilot. They may not be able to read, but they could work at an airport. They could do something related to that.
Yes.
And so I could really tell you longitudinally what a person can do with the right support and the right education. And I don't have a crystal ball, obviously. I can't tell you exactly, but I think people can do and achieve a lot of things. And don't let anybody ever tell you that they can't.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one thing that I feel like I always try to purvey is hope.
Yeah.
You have to be hopeful.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's going to be lots of little, dings along the way, and you're going to have a lot of problems and issues, but things can be worked out. You just have to have hope. It's really important. And a lot of people, like I talked to a person the other day, and she was telling me that the doctor said, well, he's not going to do anything, and he's not going to be able to go anywhere, and he can't. And I was like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Why would they even tell you that? I said, because you get a self-fulfilling prophecy too.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
we have a young man that's in one of the programs, and he loves to ride bikes. And so I happen to be a bike rider, which helps. So, but if you let him ride by himself, he's gone. And we can't take that chance, and he's got a lot of other issues.
Yeah.
So he came to me one day, and he said, could we go bike riding? So I said, Marcy, who is my education coordinator, she also rides. So we were going to bring our bikes, put them on the rack, bring them in. She had a great idea. She's real app oriented, which I'm just an old lady. She goes, we could go down to the Katy Trail, because that's where we wanted to ride, and we will rent the Lime bikes.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that's a great idea. We don't have to lug our bikes or anything.
Yeah.
So we did. We went to the Katy Trail a couple weeks ago, and we rented bikes. And I told him, I said, you go to this place and this landmark, and when you see it, you turn around. And if you hear my voice, turn, and he did. He followed every direction, and he had a great time.
Wonderful.
And then it got so hot, you know.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the class met us there, and we had lunch at the Katy Trail Ice House.
That is
So
wonderful.
yeah, and it's, you know, something they wanted to do. Now they want to ride go-karts. So I'm looking into go-karts.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking into go-karts. But whatever, you know, whatever, we dance. I mean, we've danced for some organizations. I've done the Nene twice with the kids.
Yeah.
I figure if they can do it, I can do it.
That's
So
the spirit.
yes, and that's why I think that they respect me so much, because I don't sit here behind this desk unless I have to.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out with them, and I go on field trips with them, and
That's
even
just
Trey said that
wonderful.
I like to go with them places.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
But I have to connect with the individuals that I'm with too, to know why I'm doing this.
Absolutely.
Not that it.
And
know.
you can see it. I mean, it shows when you walk around the building.
But they all have value. They all needed. Everybody needs to be treated with respect. And
Absolutely.
I do all the autism training here, and I tell everybody we need to treat these individuals like we want to be treated.
Absolutely.
They need to
yeah.
be able to have choices.
Yeah.
They need to be able to, you know, make connections and do things that, you know,
Yeah.
that we can do.
So if you had, like, if you boiled it down and said, okay, the 3 biggest challenges for adults with autism or adults with disability, what do you think you would boil those 3 down to?
Well, I think, you know, number one would be, you know, depending on the individual, because, you know, when you've met one autistic child, you've
Yeah.
met one autistic child. And everybody is very different, and everybody responds differently to different things. But there are common threads that you know, are sewn through everybody. And I think that one of the things is, you know, a lot of our individuals can work with the right support. I think it's an untapped resource.
Mhm.
It just has to be done very carefully.
Right.
You know, I think that, again, places to live. People, you know, adults, higher functioning individuals, people on the spectrum, if you have a certain IQ in the state of, well, in the whole country, because it's a federal law, they don't get services. They don't get money for residential.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they do get it, it's in a place where they really don't belong. I mean, you know,
Okay,
like
yeah.
I said, it's an oxymoron for a person who does not have an intellectual disability to have to live in a very restricted program for people with intellectual disabilities.
Right.
They consider autism a related condition. So that's why they can live when they should be in the community.
You're right.
So that's a national problem.
Right.
And again, the third thing is resources.
Mhm.
You've got to be able to have resources, even if they're getting jobs through state, you know, programs.
Right.
There's a point where they cut you off. I mean, you know, they give you support, they get you started, and some of these individuals have had 6 and 7 and 8 and no jobs.
Right.
It's because that's why what we do here is we have to go out and we do a lot of volunteer work.
Mhm.
We give back to the community because we're a nonprofit, so we give back to other nonprofits because every one of our individuals would have to have an individual everyday job coach.
Yeah.
And there's no resources for that.
Wow.
There's no money.
Yeah.
And so, and some of our individuals that are a little bit more cognitively challenged or whatever, they can still go out, so they go out on these, you know, they go out to these volunteer sites and they feel good about it and they like us at the volunteer sites and they're still doing something valuable.
Right.
You know, unfortunately we're not getting paid for it, but they still are getting, you know, they're getting a lot out of it and they're meeting other people. And
So how is the safety issue handled when someone goes out, say, to a volunteer opportunity like that, or into the public community?
well, we provide staff.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
we have to provide staff to go with them. So if it's 4 individuals and 1 staff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 2 individuals,
So
or
what-
excuse me, 2
yeah.
staff and whatever.
So whether you're getting paid or not, you still have to provide.
Oh, yes,
yeah,
right, exactly.
staff,
We
okay.
still have to provide the staff, we have to
Right.
provide the support, yes.
Right,
Excuse me.
okay.
Medical care, because a lot of them have to take meds during the day, so the staff has to be trained.
Yeah.
Do a lot of trainings, it's costly. We have
Yeah.
to train we have to do 50 hours of training a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's in all different types of things, I mean.
So is that beneficial to what you do, to providing services? That training that's required, I suppose, federally or by the state,
Mhm.
mandated, does it have positive outcomes? Is it-
Well,
is
most
it
of the
good for
time.
you? Yeah.
If it doesn't, then that person isn't here. But because we
Right.
have to do medication training, they have to
Right.
learn how to, you know, it has to be delegated by an RN.
Yeah.
Because if they go out in the community, somebody has to give that medication because the nurse isn't there in the community.
Right.
So she has to, and so it's a whole big training process. And, you know, we train on everything. We train on HIPAA, we train on deafblind, you know, multiply disabled because we have that population.
Yeah.
We do a lot with trauma. We talk about cultural, you know, differences. You know, we have harassment in the workplace, safety in the workplace. I mean, it's a whole behavior. We do hours of behavior training.
Right.
You know, because we want people to understand what it's like to work with individuals and how you can, you know, work with them positively.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Because your overall goal, I mean, if you had a personal mission statement, what would that be?
To improve, to have the individuals that I deal with have the best quality of life that I can possibly give to them.
That's a great mission statement.
That's been it for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and it shows, because when you interact with these individuals, they're humans to you. They are.
And that's a really good point, and that's what the first thing I say. These are human beings.
Yeah,
They're not.
yeah.
Yes, we may have to graph things and take data, but that's not them. They are living, breathing individuals.
And they're so beautiful. It's just incredible to see. So tell us in a nutshell what ATC does.
For residential support, behavioral support, educational support, vocational support, for individuals on the spectrum, and other related disorders too, because we do have individuals that have what we call coexisting conditions, comorbid conditions. You know, some people have autism and ADHD, or autism and bipolar, or autism and intellectual whatever it is.
Right.
But they have to have a degree of autism, because that's what we specialize in.
Okay.
So, and I think, I think it's the same thing. We want to give them opportunities, to meet new people, to, get out in the community, to try to fulfill their needs and their wishes, whatever they want to do,
right.
In some way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a small way, but at least it's touching what they really want to do.
And you're working from very young children to full-grown adults here. Yeah.
Through the lifespan.
Through the lifespan, yeah.
Now, we don't have any, 2 and 3 year olds in our residential. Our youngest residential kid is 9, and our oldest is 71.
Wow.
Yeah, he'll be 72.
That's quite a spread, yeah. And then staff live in the group homes as well?
We have staff that, they some can live in there, some just come, we have evening, we don't really have shifts. I mean, we do have shifts, but they come here at 4:30, pick up the kids, and they work till 6, or the next morning until they bring the kids to school, individuals to school, excuse me. And then they're off from Friday morning till Monday morning. We have weekend staff that come in. And,
okay.
We have round-the-clock nursing, 24-hour.
And as far as the group home goes, I mean, how much of that is private pay versus?
None.
Really?
No, we have 1 out of 75 individuals, we have 1 that's private pay.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
Everybody else is either through Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, we have a residential treatment center, or a waiver program, health and home and community-based services.
Yeah.
We have the deaf-blind, multiply disabled waiver, and then we have 3 ICFIDs. I haven't said MR in years. ICFIDs. We have, and then we have, and we have a couple of kids that are funded through the Texas Education Agency that live with us.
Okay.
So it's kind of they're all, only 1 is private pay out of all of those individuals.
Wow. So that's a lot of programs. I mean, how do you keep up with the paperwork? And just your submissions, your updates,
I don't know. I have help.
Yeah.
I do have help.
Yeah.
I have caseworkers, but I have to stay on top of it all the time.
So when it comes to being out in the world, I think as parents, our number one concern is safety, and even with law enforcement, I mean their job is hard enough as it is. Now throw in any type of disability, or let's call it different behavior from what they would typically expect. How do we address that? Where do we begin?
Well, I think a lot of time we have to train first responders.
Yeah.
In any way we can, and we need to train the individual themselves as well. To, like Louise was talking about, she wants them to know what their phone number is. That they can say their name, or they can pull out a card if they're nonverbal, saying, this is who I am.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of individuals that are, higher on the spectrum, or however we want to say it anymore, they still, even though they have, maybe they drive cars, or they're more cognitively aware, they still are so literal sometimes, that they don't respond like they need to.
Right.
So I mean, we had a guy who said, "Okay, well, do you waive your rights?" And so he said,
"Oh."
He waived.
Yeah.
I mean, they're that literal,
Yeah.
and And people may take that for being rude or, you know, trying to be recalcitrant or whatever, but they're not. That's the way they think, you know. And so, and Ken is doing a really good job. I think he goes to Plano once a month, and he acts out different scenes for different, you know, first responders, so that they have experience with, you know, different people on the spectrum. And I think that awareness. I mean, we have to raise awareness. I think awareness is being raised, absolutely. But I think that it's unfortunately, it's every day. You got to teach it every day.
Yeah.
If you have an individual, every day it's like teaching social skills every single day. It's like teaching math or science. You teach it every day.
Yeah.
Because they have to be reminded, and you're hoping it generalizes at some point.
Yeah.
But generalization is a really hard thing for people with autism.
Right.
And that's why you have to teach it everywhere. You know, you can't just teach it in one spot and expect it to go out everywhere.
Right.
We can learn something and we can take it everywhere we go. They have to learn it in the grocery store. They have to learn it at home. They have to learn it at the mall, in the movie, at their place of worship, wherever.
Yeah.
It has to go with them. And then once they start generalizing, oh my God, it's phenomenal. You have made real progress.
Right.
You know, when they can do that. But it's a slow process, but it can be done.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. It's a labor of love. Absolutely a labor of love.
Well, that's obvious. And Dr. Carolyn Garver, I appreciate the time that you've spent with us today, and been so generous in your showing us the place. And
Thank you for what you do too.
Well, we appreciate you, and thank you for talking with us.
Sure.